Yes, everyone, you know what time it is. It's your boys Jack, Dave, and Sunny is joining us once again. We've all been battling through our own kind of versions of sickness. Potentially, I think it was Dave that was the one that got it first. Then it was passed on to Sunny, and then it went all the way across the Atlantic Ocean over myself here. But we're able to finally join up. We're been given the go ahead by the medical team here. Sunny, I'll go to you first because I think Dave is being very, sort of preemptively warning about the internet today. So he wants me to continue to go to him last. So if you ever, keep noticing that, I keep going to Dave last, it's because he keeps instructing me to. But Sonny, yourself, how are you? How have you recovered? What's on your mind?
Yeah, not bad. I was a bit gutted actually to miss last week's podcast, and obviously I didn't send in my predictions this week either, so very lacking behind. Need to get back to full match fitness. So hopefully today I might be operating at 90%, but 90% is better than nothing.
And Dave, what would you say? You seem to be operating close to at least 100%. What would you say, around 90%? I did hear on your watch along that if you get a haircut sometime soon, you said you will be at 10 out of 10 levels again. So when's that haircut?
Yeah, Jack, I am. Well, my birthday's Saturday, so I might sneak down Saturday morning for one, get a nice beard trim, get the hair done. I might even stretch and go and get a facial done as well, Jack, just make sure. I might go for strive for the 11 out of 10.
Oh, go for the 11 out of 10s, exactly. Extra time, sort of levels. That's what you need. Everybody, if you can, though, please, please, please do check out, of course, Sunny Talk Spurs. We're going to keep plugging that man. We're going to keep forcing you to head on over to that channel because we like what he has to say. And also, I do think he adds a great dynamic to this podcast. Do check out his channel. Hopefully, at some stage, too, he mentions maybe what he's been kind of, doing over there. He might derail this podcast. He doesn't need to, but, if he has maybe a topic or a tangent that he's thinking about. And also, please smash the like button, get your comments in on maybe what you want to see us discuss next time. And also do check out maybe a members only video as well that will be also at the end of this one. But there has been some news that's broken about. Rob McKenzie has left Aston Villa and will join Tottenham as the chief scout next week. Plenty of Spurs fans, though, on social media, Sonny, are very worried from what I can tell. They're kind of not giving, McKenzie as well as Bruno Lange, our new kind of technical director, Lange, much of a kind of a welcoming. They seem kind of skeptical about the two guys, Johan Lange and Mr. Rob Kenzie.
It seems like whenever we talk about this, we've spoken about it the last couple of weeks when I've been on. It's just a bit of a weird situation of like we don't really know how the setup's going to be until the proof will be in the pudding when we see it. And I've noticed with how people treat Paratici. 1 minute it's like I think I saw your tweet. 1 minute is the Don, next minute is the con. It's like what do you want? Like you can't pick and choose when you want to rate Paratici or not. And even the other guy, is it Gabbiadini?
Gabbiadini, yeah.
I didn't even realize he was at the club actually until he left.
And now everybody's talking about him.
I thought he was the former Southampton striker. I was like, it must be the same person. No, but maybe we need to. I feel like when it comes to scouting, and I'm talking about like proper scouting, not like don't get me wrong, Paratici has found some hidden gems, but I feel like that's not. I feel like he uses like black book to get those signings, whereas this new setup of scouting, I feel like it's going to be more like people going to games, really properly seeing these players for what they are, looking at their underlying numbers, and a lot has been said about these two coming from Villa, and Villa's recent transfer record has been, I'd say you could easily say 50-50. They've either paid over the odds for someone who's flopped a bit, or they haven't really seen the full potential, or they have signed an absolute gem who's really come through. So I'm quite hopeful. I'm really optimistic.
Yeah.
I don't think it could get any worse. I still think Paratici will still be on the books. It's just Tottenham's assembling their version of an Avengers of transfer and scouting network to really get the best. Because I just think our transfer policy has been an absolute a catastrophe for the last 10 years. I'm thinking of Vincent Janssens and Soldados and players like this, and they're just all a load of rubbish. So I'm hoping, touch wood, we're going in the right direction with this new setup.
I just where that tweet sort of, that you're referencing came from is it just felt like there's all this kind of skepticism and, kind of a lot of people not really, being totally, behind, I guess, Rob McKenzie and Lange. And I don't need them to be, but they're sort of basing it off of the fact that Paratici and Gabonini were so great for us and everything. It just felt like there was this random pendulum swing, like, that just happened almost overnight where Paratici just went from a con in everybody's eyes to all of a sudden being the Don. And I remember from day one just sort of being very much behind Paratici because I just knew that almost anybody would be better than what we had previously with Steve Hitchens. So it just felt like we can maybe give Rob McKenzie and Johan Lang like a bit of the same sort of, I don't know, benefit of the doubt, welcome to Tottenham Hotspur sort of vibe. Like, why do we have to be so skeptical kind of straight away, out the gates? I'm not saying that, we don't have to look a little bit into their CV or their resumes and see maybe what they might have done wrong and what they've done right and maybe have certain worries. But I don't know. To me personally, it felt a bit similar to when Paratici was first welcomed. He wasn't really welcomed that kindly. He was actually given a lot of skepticism himself. A lot of people did call him kind of the con and thought that he wasn't actually making the right moves, spending, in the wrong areas. And only now can you really say that maybe he has more of kind of a favorable reputation. But that took a while, for him to get that sort of more favorable reputation. And I just sort of was so attached to him or so kind of, in favor of him because for no reason at all, it felt like straight away people were kind of out to get him or out to, make sure that, he was going to be a bad director of football or they wanted to see him in that sort of light because everything wasn't going well for Spurs. And he was just going to be one of the next guys in line that was going to contribute to, that feeling that knowing nothing's going well for Spurs, Levy doesn't make the right decisions, type of thing. And I just sort of feel like Paratici ended up proving a lot of people wrong. He wasn't welcomed in, it felt like, with a huge, nice and welcoming reception from Spurs fans to clean up the job. Felt like a lot of people doubted him from the beginning. And I don't know, I'm worried that we're going to be making the same mistake here or just kind of not, really giving him a proper sort of, start, McKenzie or Lange. But Dave, I keep jumping between the pronunciations of Lang and Lange, so I do apologize for that. But what are your thoughts?
Look, Jack, tomato, tomato, potato, potato, call them what you want is what I say. But look, when it comes to maybe when it comes to the skepticism around Rob McKenzie, I understand it to a certain degree because, over the last 6 years, right, we've had some of the worst scouting or recruitment in England to some of the best. So we've had the worst and the best over the last 6 years. And for me, I think I understand the skepticism around it because we've seen what bad recruitment can do. For instance, Steve Hitchen, he got nearly 400 million to spend on Tottenham to rebuild Tottenham, for Pochettino. And after that, and he absolutely failed. And we were just falling from grace. And it was very hard to accept from fans. So I do understand the focus and the skepticism around the director of football and his chief scout. But, like anyone, you've got to give them an opportunity. What I will say is that good. I have to call at times. It's going to be hard for anyone to follow in his footsteps and get as much right as what he got.
Dave, restart that point. Might have to, we'll edit this spot. So,
sorry, I'm trying to save on the editing.
No, it was great. No, it was great.
Point? The one I was just about to make.
What point were you just on? You were just speaking about Rob McKenzie, and then you started you went around to, like he's something like, he's only just got in or something like that. You got to give him, the benefit of the doubt. Not sure. Sorry.
Yeah.
You were in the middle of a good point. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So, we've got Rob McKenzie now, and I'm of the opinion you've got to give everyone an opportunity. See, we were so blessed with Paratici's scouting being so damn good that anyone that comes in the door, they're going to find it very, very hard to follow up with hit after hit after hit like Paratici got us. But we also have to remember, Paratici wasn't just here to identify players and bring them in. Look at all the scouting stuff he put in place in the background, bringing in the data-driven model like other clubs like Brenton and Brightford and etc. operate off. And I'm hoping that he's put enough sort of pieces in place and that we've derived in that data model stats and data that flag up that will show that, yeah, he's a Tottenham Hotspur player. Not that he's good enough, but he's a Tottenham Hotspur player. He's got the right control, the right technique. He wants to win up and down, likes attacking football. I just hope that we have manipulated that data scout and that no matter who comes in after, as long as they follow that, they can't go too far wrong. The only fear I sort of have right now is the person. Look, every person likes different type of people. With Paratici, he got a lot of his recruitment spot on. Young, hungry players who don't have big overinflated egos about themselves, that want to come in here and work. With Steve Hitchin, he completely neglected the personality or the person, the way they live their life off the field. That's why we're stuck with so much shit still to this day that we're trying to get rid of. If he doesn't get the right type of character, based on that, it could derail everything. So, look, for me, I'm 50-50 on it. I'll be honest, Jack. I really, really did like what Paratici done to this football club. He's really sort of brought us forward. The recruitment is night and day. We're not falling from grace anymore. We're up there 10 games unbeaten the start of this season. It's going to be hard for anyone to replicate it, but I'll be honest, I'm a little bit nervous, a little bit hesitant because I don't like change, Jack, but I'm willing to give him an opportunity.
It would be pretty hard to rock the boat, wouldn't it be, Sonny? It's hard to mess it up from here.
Well, I was just having a read there. Apparently, it's a rehiring. Apparently, he was at the club in 2015. I didn't even realise.
Yeah.
And also, but he was at Leicester, and he was there when they signed Riyad Mahrez. So if he can find us a Riyad Mahrez type, and even it says Cambiasso as well. So I mean, I remember when Leicester
and
signed
Jamie Vardy,
Cambiasso,
supposedly.
like,
But I don't know.
that's some massive signings for them as a club. So I don't know if it's really upsetting like the apple cart. Really, I feel like Tottenham needs change. Like we've sat here and said like, Levy needs to buck his ideas up, take a step back. And then some fans, now that's sort of happening. They're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Like, it's sort of, we might as well give it a go because, like, what's the worst that's going to happen? He's not going to find any players, or we do sign some players and we'll just have to move them on. Like, it's not as, I feel like people are treating it like it's a managerial appointment where, like, we've got a manager now who could probably turn water into wine, the players you give him now. So, and we're going to go out there and scout a certain type of player. We're not going to just be like, trying to sign a Joe Roden type. Like we are going to go maybe to some unknown leagues, but we're going to pick their gems out. Like we're not just picking the bloody kit man from the Belgian league or something like that. So I'm quite confident. I'm just really think this stat-based model of scouting is a positive thing for the club, and it's a good avenue that I'm happy to go down because I'm sick of Tottenham trying to throw like 60 million at Atangi and Ndombele, and look at him now, he can't even he's fallen out with Galatasaray. It's just a joke.
It feels like it's kind of
The
funny
reason-
that I just quickly, Dave, I think it's kind of funny how much the game has changed where all of a sudden, most, sort of avid football fans of their club do know who the technical director is. They know who the chief scout is. It's like kind of crazy how much kind of sort of the football hipster, database sort of, European nerds like myself, have sort of in a way kind of influenced this game enough that a lot of people do know that recruitment is kind of a heavy, heavy, heavy part of the success behind a club, right? The managers can change. A lot of things can change around the football club, but usually the recruitment sort of should kind of not alter that much, especially if it's going well and if it's kind of been, on the right sort of track. And that's what's kind of interesting is almost like nowadays, these sort of positions, as kind of ridiculous as they often sound, technical director of, player development and all these sort of guys, they almost are now becoming some of the more important people that actually operate in and around the club because they kind of they're the ones that see out the vision, and those sort of words and, the ethos and the philosophy of the club. Those are the guys that are actually trying to act that out. But what were you about to say, Dave? Because I was just, commenting about just football hipsters taking over.
No, look, I agree with what you're saying. The thing is, the director of football and the chief scout have become so important because it's no longer the manager coming into clubs and identifying players. Clubs, the way it used to work is they bring in the manager, they spend the money for the manager on exactly what he wants. But if it doesn't work out, there are millions of pounds sort of invested into it. It hasn't worked out, and they have to go a different direction and do the same again. So clubs don't operate like that now. So they bring in a director of football, the chief scout, and they identify the players for the club. And if they then bring in the manager, and if the manager can't get that to work, he's out the door. The next guy's in. We've seen that at so many clubs, and that, so based off that, that's why they're so important. I know what somebody's saying about Ange Postecoglou can turn water into wine. I think we can't get too carried away on that. I think Ange Postecoglou can make good players better, but he cannot turn water into wine, because he hasn't done that with Hugo Lloris, hasn't done that with Ben Davies or Eric Dyer, this, that, and the other. So what I will say is, recruitment is so important in football nowadays. Really, really is important. If Postecoglou had to work with Hugo Lloris in goals this season, with Dyer at centre-back, Davies at left-back, forget about the football we're playing, forget about being 10 games unbeaten, everything goes out the window. That probably, for me, highlights the importance of recruitment. Underneath Antonio Conte, I was saying all the time, the defence is the issue. Why are we signing here? Why are we signing here when the back line is the issue? Not doing the back line came back to let the best defensive managers in world football fail. And we have to realize that, recruitment is everything in football nowadays. If you get it wrong, you're going to fail. If you get it right, you'll go and win things. That's how important it is. People think that the manager has all the power walking into clubs now, and they go, oh, but he signed him and he signed him. It's like, no, they'll say, look, I need this and this and this position to be able to improve my squad. And then they'll come back and say, okay, the scouting department will come back and say, okay, well, these are the list of players we've got in that position. What's your top three preference? The odd time, they might get what they want. We've seen it with Conte. He got in Perisic, but there were a lot of other signings that we brought in that he didn't exactly want. So, we do have to realize how important recruitment is.
Yeah, I completely agree, Dave. And Sonny, I mean, maybe last question, really, sort of on sort of the recruitment. Could you say that maybe these sort of chief scouts and directors of football, or in a way, unless you can shoot this down, feel free to do it, are they starting to become more important than the manager?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think more important. I feel like maybe on a similar level. Like
More and more
they
becoming
have to go
equally
hand in
important.
hand, because there was a thing of like if we go back to Pochettino, there was this whole thing of who was in charge of transfers. Was it Poch? Was it Levy? How much of an extent does a manager have when it, like, in the modern game, to be like, here's a list. He used to be like Fergie, I could imagine, was like, these are the players I want, and he got them. Whereas nowadays, I feel like it's like, oh, and we're going to go on to Chelsea. Like, how many of those players did Pochettino want?
Yeah.
So it's hard.
Exactly.
It's hard to really judge. It's all, does say Ange go, I need this type of player. I need a left-footed centre back who's quick and can play out from the back. And they go, put it in the slot machine, and it comes up Mickey van der Ven, like that. Like, it's hard to know which is which, or does Ange go, I want Mickey van der Ven? Because, we did spend most of the summer going between him and Tapsoba. So it is quite interesting. I, for one, don't really know what the setup is at Tottenham anymore. But I'm sure Postecoglou has a say, but I don't think he has the final say per se.
I agree with what Dave said earlier, though, that you just don't give that sort of power to managers really anymore, and clubs more and more aren't doing that because it's kind of really untenable, right? If he continues to bring in, players that maybe end up being used by the next manager, that and it's just this repeating cycle of just sort of buying players for sort of here and now, and never buying players for long term or anything like that, and never having any sort of joint up thinking, and everything just sort of handing over the keys to the next guy just doesn't really seem actually like really that wise. Maybe just better just kind of have them just really focus on the tactics and focus on the coaching. And that's what they're also sort of saying. More and more they're less, given that sort of power over recruitment, over kind of, which players they really can, decisively want to bring in or not, because they feel like that's actually better left with others that might end up outlasting actually the manager and actually outlasting, his time, because everything really more also depends on results. And we're even seeing it quickly with Man United, right? Apparently with Ten Hag, right? He had such a say and such a power over everything at Ajax. And the moment that he leaves Ajax, and a few other kind of employees at Ajax also left, right? And all of a sudden everything comes crashing down, because they actually were the ones that sort of had, in a way, like a dictatorship over the whole club. And the moment that they leave, no one knows what to do or how to operate by themselves, or what to do for themselves. And a similar thing is happening with, I guess, Man United's department. They just sort of hand the keys to whatever manager comes in, and he gets to decide the signings, and it can end up leading to your own downfall there. So that's sort of why I just kind of would finish on. Yeah, and then Dave, and we'll head on over to Chelsea afterwards.
Yeah, look, the whole reason behind this, maybe for better explanation, is so that the club is protected beyond the manager. Because before, if you got a good manager and he left, it could be the difference between staying in the Premier League, getting relegated, winning something, not winning something. Now, the whole idea of having these director of football, the chief scout, and everyone else in place, identifying players, is to protect the club beyond the manager, so that even if the manager goes, the next manager could come in and you're not going to see that drop off. That's the whole idea behind it. Now, it doesn't always work out, but if you've got the right people in the right place, it can work out. And like, just maybe last point to highlight how important recruitment is. Yes, Man City, yes, Newcastle have all that money, but you put it in contrast to Man United and Chelsea, who also have just similar amounts of money to spend. The difference is Newcastle and Man City, you spend it right. The likes of Chelsea and Man United have spent it completely wrong. And that's the difference. Look how far Man United have fallen off Alex Ferguson since they changed the whole recruitment department, So that's how important it is in modern day football.
Nowadays, these bigger clubs, it's not like they need more money. What they really need is just better recruitment. Like an extra 60 million, won't solve Chelsea's problems. Like, what they need is actually no more money. They need to just figure out, everything without spending more money. Really, I completely agree with that. But we're going to go to the thumbnail. And I've decided to sort of ask the question here, to kind of engage people. There is a certain former employee of Tottenham Hotspur, and a lot of people see him in a very glowing and loving way, and they might, end up sort of showing that appreciation when he comes back to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Monday night. What are your thoughts, Sonny, on how maybe Pochettino will be received, should be received? And then there's a question afterwards that, I want to ask about sort of his position right now with Chelsea. Could we end up giving him enough of a sort of a beating, really, that, he ends up getting sacked? But maybe we'll touch on that a bit afterwards. How would you like to see Pochettino, the former manager, be received on Monday night?
I mean, in the modern era, he is probably our greatest manager in the Premier League, that is. And, going back a couple of months ago, people were singing his name in the stadium. A lot of the fan base wanted him back as the manager. I wasn't one of them. I never think you should go back to a former manager, because it's just, you should never go back to an ex. You should never go back to an ex. You're always going to get hurt. So my thought process is, when he got the job, I was a bit like, oh, I was surprised because of all the stuff he used to say about he'd never managed Barca because of Espanyol, he'd never managed Arsenal because of Tottenham, he'd never probably managed Portsmouth because of Southampton. But Chelsea and Tottenham have a weird relationship where, I mean, look how many managers we've taken of them. So that, like, part of me is like, it's, pot kettle black, or whatever you want to say. Like, it is a bit contradictory when it's, we've done it with AVB, Conte, Mourinho, and they've done it with one of ours who happens to be one of the best ones. And we're like, oh, God. And we sacked him at the end of the day. He could do what he wants after that. But if I was at the stadium on Monday, I'm not a booer, really, unless it's the Arsenal. And I'm not really. I like if it's like a former player who's come back. Like, I remember Aaron Lennon, like, good receptions like that. Always clap your former players like that. But I don't think he deserves a clap either. I'd probably just do that. Just stand there and just be like, yeah, because I just feel like I feel a bit weird if like people were clapping him. Like, for example, I think Dele Alli was the most recent player that we clapped, because we have that respect for him. He's obviously gone through a lot of trouble as well.
Mhm.
So whereas Pochettino clapping him for
Mhm.
what? Like what? Like I don't know. It'd be a bit weird. But
Mhm.
then booing as well. I
Is
find
it a
that a
sign of
bit.
weakness, do you think, like, kind of, clapping for him, going into the game,
Exactly.
Sonny? Yeah.
It's like submitting to him, and like he's at Chelsea now. Like we've got a manager who I hope will, do more and achieve more than he ever did. Hopefully, one
Mm.
step further and all that. But I don't think we should boo him either. I mean, there is going to be boos, and everyone. To be fair, I'd probably get caught up in the whole pantomime of it to some extent because you just do. But I just even like one of the key ones was I remember I was at the FA Cup game against Morecambe where a lot of fans were booing Ndombele, and even though I was frustrated by him, I didn't boo because I thought it was like just like, booing your own player as well is it is a
Mm.
bit different. But no, I'm not part of the boo brigade either.
Mm. Dave, I do find booing quite fun. It's, one of those things that we can it's one of those noises that's just kind of fun to make, as a human. And so I just sort of do partake in it from time to time. But we're kind of getting a bit of a Brad Matthews approach. Brad, if you are listening from Sonny here, he's going to go for the same approach as you, Sonny. He's just going to fold his arms and just sort of see what everyone else sort of does
Nice.
around him. And
Mm.
he's going to kind of remain a bit indifferent about it, which I actually think is the very actually appropriate, probably response. But
Yeah.
Dave and I always like to go to the extremes. If you were in the crowd right behind his dugout, Dave, what would you be doing? And how would you like him to be received?
Look, I'm the leader of the boo squad. You know me, I absolutely love it at times, Jack. I remember last year with Sanchez, what was it? The game he got booed by the stadium. I was already booing him off the pitch anyway, doing the watch along. So it's sort of like, I just feel that we've tolerated so much crap over the last few years that we shouldn't actually really tolerate at this football club. And I think with all the hike in prices and everything else, I think if you see a player that routinely hasn't put it in for quite a number of years, I think you're well entitled to boo him, considering money that person's taken out of your football club. But
This is
look,
about
when it comes to
Pochettino.
Pochettino, I think
Yeah.
I've already made my opinions clear on this. I get it, right? I get all the hypocritical nature around it that Sonny was talking about. Fully get it. But I'm asking people to throw your morals out the window for around 110 minutes. We have to understand, being a winner, there's no room for sentimentality whatsoever. This is war. We want to go on and win a league title. Chelsea have knocked us out of so many cups. They've stopped us from winning the league against Leicester. This isn't more at Pochettino. This is more at Chelsea as a whole, and he chose to go there. That's on him. It's not personal against Pochettino, but take lessons from what we done to Arsenal under Antonio Conte when we got Champions League. Gary Neville's famous words were, the Tottenham fans brutalized that Arsenal all day long. We brutalized them coming up to the stadium. We brutalized them getting off the bus, walking around the stadium to the dressing rooms. We brutalized them walking out on that football pitch. So much so, when I went back and watched the Arsenal All or Nothing documentary on the very last episode that it's on, you could see how nervous their players were walking out into that atmosphere. They were already beaten before they got out there. So was Arteta. His whole psyche and his whole thing was gone as well. And it can have a massive effect. And this is where fans can really come and have a part to play, in this run that we're on. Make it brutal. There's no room for sentimentality. If Poch comes out and applauds like that, boo the living shit out of him is what I say, because by sitting there and applauding them back, he's going to sit there and I've got them in the palm of my hands. And the Chelsea team will thrive off it, everything else. Whereas for me, I look at it much similarities to Arsenal. Very young squad, very naive squad. Go out there and intimidate the living shite out of them. After the game, once it's done, once we've got the 3 points on the board, we go 11 games unbeaten. We still stay top of the league. Then we can sit there and sing, his magic, Pochettino. Then you can sit there and show your appreciation, or show your appreciation through social media, tweet him, Instagram him, stuff like that. But when you're at that stadium, use what it was built for. That wall of sound, use what it was built for. I want to win titles, and there's no room for sentimentality. Pochettino didn't show any sentimentality by wanting to come back to Tottenham and take this job. He went to Chelsea. So why should we show him any before the game or during the game?
I just feel like it's sports tribalism is kind of one of also the fun parts, as well. And it's kind of like you do often just behave like a bit of a shit house, and you behave, a bit sort of kind of, in a way, kind of hypocritically or whatever it is. Like it all sort of kind of comes with it, and it's all part of the game, and it's kind of not that deep, I think, sometimes, when you're, booing another team's player or booing the opposition manager or even booing and, giving the referee, tons and everything like that. Like it is often, maybe goes way, way too far. And then in certain situations, I just feel like, yeah, it's all part of the game. And it is part of being a sports fan. It's actually part that I actually enjoy, about it, like as well as sort of that, opportunity to be able to do it. And in Pochettino's case, especially, like, when I look back in the days of, his sort of glory days, I will, absolutely sort of have similar, bits of emotion and, be really sort of, warming and loving towards it. And in general, I look at him as like still like a great person in our
Yeah.
history. I still really kind of look at him, wouldn't know fondly is the right word, but I still, look at him in, a nice light and everything like that. But when he did make that decision to go to Chelsea after sort of, having a bunch of really nice and sentimental words about Spurs, also kind of as well, being one of the guy, that was there at the Battle of the Bridge as well, with them, when they took the league away from us. I felt like, that was sort of a club that if he really was one of those managers, kind of like Ange, that, says a lot of sort of, nice things about the club, really tries to attach himself to the fan base and to the culture and everything like that. There are then clubs that you inevitably sign up for that you then mean you can't play for another club or manage another club because you sort of did engage, in that sort of rivalry and that sort of, attachment to the club. Then there are other managers who are complete mercenaries and just bounce between club to club to club and are all just about winning, all about getting you results, delivering you trophies. I think, maybe a Jose, a Conte, those guys, they're kind of in that sort of bracket. And there's nothing wrong with that. I really don't think there is anything wrong with that. But when Pochettino made that decision to go to Chelsea, I sort of then saw him more in that kind of mercenary type where I was like, okay, so really what you said about Spurs was maybe not true, or, maybe you didn't mean as much as you actually sort of felt, or maybe you don't care that much now, and now you're kind of a bit hardened up, I guess, or whatever it may be. You don't feel as sort of sentimental towards clubs anymore. Not really sure. But the moment he made that decision, kind of saw him more in that sort of mercenary type when it comes to, being a manager. And there's nothing wrong with it. But, loved him a little less and then sort of felt like, yeah, that was a bit of a snake like, sort of thing to do, which is to say a bunch of nice things about Spurs, sort of engage with us, say, especially at a few punditry roles, right, where he was really glowing always about Spurs and kind of, had this sort of, feeling like, yeah, I would love to come back, would really love to, be with that club only sort of type of, kind of a, message he was kind of given across. And then to go to Chelsea, I think is, yeah, going against your word a little bit. And it feels like just great fuel for the fire, to use against him. That's really what I see it as, just great fuel to use against him. In general, if you ask me, what do I actually think of Podge? I still think he's a good guy. I still think he did a great thing for us. But yeah, I loved him a little less, was a little hurt by that move to Chelsea, and I'll use that against him. I don't think it's that deep, really.
Look, I do want to say, look, I do love Pochettino for what he done. I still love him. But, I ask myself, what will hurt me more come the end of the game, lads? Me booing Pochettino or us losing to Chelsea. And it's us losing to Chelsea would hurt me more. Me booing Pochettino, I can put aside and I can put it off as, I can write it off as I've done what I needed to do to try and win a game of football. We can shake hands after, I can show my love after, but losing to Chelsea will hurt me even more. And sometimes they say there's pivotal moments in a title race. This is one of them early moments for us. If we lose this or we don't come out, smelling of roses, this could very well derail us. Whereas if we go on, we make an intimidating atmosphere by the fans. The players come out, respond to it. We go on and we slap Chelsea. That will bring everyone really together and because it's such a big opponent, that will really push us on to the next big game towards Man City. That'll give us that confidence, that momentum. So I just ask fans, put your morals aside for 110 minutes, and then we can show Pochettino love.
Not often you're told to do that, Sonny. Usually before football match. Hopefully we don't have to do that too often. In this case.
Oh, honestly, but Chelsea are the scummiest club in the league. I actually think I hate them more than Arsenal. I'm not, and that's
Some
not
people,
even
feel that way.
But yeah, maybe we'll just You got. I agree with what Dave's saying as well. Like we got to make that stadium a cauldron in these London derbies, because we played Chelsea last year and it was a good game, and it was probably one of the better games of the season. So playing the way we are and rattling that Chelsea team who are fragile, but it's weird, isn't it? Because I'd say Chelsea's best games have been against top teams like in Liverpool and Arsenal, but in both of them they've chucked them away and like not looked fully convincing. So they're there to be had. I'm confident going into this one, and I didn't think I'd say that because Chelsea is one of those teams where you put your red mark next to it and be like, that's one of the ones I'm nervous about.
I know Sonny says he doesn't like booing, but how funny would it be to see the camera pan across the stands and Sonny's there with a traffic cone to accentuate his boos booing into it? It'd be absolutely hilarious.
You never
know.
A
big banner, just boo on it.
Never know. A couple of those snake oils, from Beavertown, and a few of your mates around you, and you end up, going you doing exactly that. On sort of Chelsea's form though, and also the fact that Spurs are doing so well in comparison, and the fact that Chelsea's owners, as much as they don't seem to really know what they're doing, they would notice at least that Ange has come into the Premier League and has had a much better start to things than what Pochettino has had. Is there maybe a bit of pressure on Poch to actually get a result here? Do you think, Sonny? Do you think the owners kind of want him to? Do you think, if he ends up being beat in this game, and let's say convincingly, let's just say for hypothetical sake, could it end up leading to his sacking? Could we be the catalyst for it?
I don't think he would. I think the game could end 3-4-5. Not I think it will, but hypothetically, if it ended 3-4-5, I can't see him being sacked. I think they actually want to give Poch a go more than they did Graham Potter, because I feel like Poch is more of a proven manager in their eyes. So. And also, I believe if they did sack him, like who goes into Chelsea after that? It becomes like the biggest poison chalice in football after that. It would be stupid for them to do it. And I think actually, and there are Tottenham fans who are probably sitting there thinking like it's all well and good now, but like Poch is a good enough manager to turn this mess around. He's got a good young squad there who just need arms around, similar to us. We needed another manager to just put arms around players and get the best out of them. But as I said, I'm confident going into this one. I think we could give Chelsea a good game. They're not they're more struggling periods than we are, especially after last season as well. So yeah, I'm quietly confident as well. It's just. Yeah, I just think Todd Bowley would be an absolute imbecile if he was to sack another manager this soon after, because it's setting a precedent then of this is the regime, and it's like when Roman Abramovich did it, it had some sort of swagger to it, because the managers were coming in were the biggest winners in the game, your Contes, your Ancelottis, your Mourinho's, Whereas now, who's he going to bring in after this? I don't know. What's Gus Hiddink doing? Is he going to come back and save the day? I don't know. I just think it is actually the Chelsea situation is. I just can't get my head around it all. It seems like they've got all the right pieces to the jigsaw puzzle, but they've got the wrong box, and so they're trying to think the picture's something else, and it's just not all adding up. But as I said, they're an awful club, so. Good luck to them.
I know what you mean by the fact that Abramovich sort of would replace, the once, very stylish manager with then an even more sort of stylish or kind of, intimidating, kind of big name, and everything like that. And it's almost like that sort of tactic has been used sort of far enough. And, Todd Bowley's not even able to benefit from that anymore, because there are just so many, previous managers, at Chelsea that it would be kind of, strange for him to try it and somehow sort of do the same thing. That's what even most Chelsea fans were in a way looking forward to, if I remember, were that they wanted some sort of stability of some kind. They wanted a project manager, and they have yet to get one yet. And Pochettino, though, Dave, cast yourself back to when he was with us. Is this a sort of similar brink or a similar breaking point that he was at? Remember his Spurs job, in the beginning, it was not going great. And there was maybe some rumors that he was sort of, had his job sort of on the line, for, kind of in his initial few months with Spurs. Do you see it kind of similar with how it's gone with Chelsea?
I think it's very, very similar, Jack. I think, look, with Pochettino, Harry Kane saved his job with that free kick against Aston Villa. If he didn't score that and we didn't, take points from that game, I think Pochettino was probably on the verge. Because let's be honest, the fans were also a bit up in the air with Pochettino at that time. But once he got rid of the older guard, the likes of the Holtbys, the Adebayors, and people like that, and started bringing through players from the academy and stuff like that, we've seen a complete different outcome. Pochettino is one of them managers. He works well with younger players. When he went to PSG, I sort of didn't think he would work out with the superstars because of what his philosophy actually demands from players. And a lot of superstars don't want to go through the running and everything else, and that Pochettino puts his players through. With Chelsea, they've got a lot of young players. They've accumulated a whole lot. And it's going to take time to sort out. Any manager that walks in there, they've got a squad of nearly 30-odd players, let alone all the younger players that they've got out on loan. So he's actually got too much variety, too much choice, believe it or not. And I never thought I'd say that's a bad thing, but sometimes it can be, trying to find the right partnerships and stuff like that. It can be hard. I do think Pochettino long-term will get the problem sorted out. However, if we beat them well Monday night, them fans won't tolerate that, them Chelsea fans. They will not tolerate that. And once the fans lose faith in the manager, ultimately, the manager ends up carrying the can. We've seen that with Nuno. We've seen that with Jose. We've seen that with Conte at this football club. Once the fans lose patience, once there's no more sort of grace period for them, that manager, if he loses a couple more games after that, he's out the door. And it very well could happen at Chelsea if he doesn't pick up. They had a little bit of a run before that Brentford game, but Brentford, you're thinking, okay, go and win that, heading into Spurs, a bit of momentum. And they got played off the park. They got better. So maybe there's also an element that some of them players, see, it's hard for any manager to go in there because of the length of the contracts that the players are on. We had the similar situation at Tottenham with Dyers and Lloris's and Davies, etc. The length of their contracts and the big wages they were on meant they were able to dictate what manager was in charge in that dugout. And I've no doubt there's similar going-ons in that Chelsea, in that Chelsea dugout as well. We've seen when they weren't having Potter, despite him signing a 6-year contract, long-term project, he was out the door very, very quickly. And the players could do the very same to Pochettino because what you've got now is manager ain't running that football club. That dressing room is running that football club. They're dictating what's going on there because they know they don't have to go anywhere. They're on them contracts for 6, 7, 8 years. So.
Momentum and form is such a thing because it feels like that's what it buys you time, right? If you have momentum, it can get you time with the players. They start to believe in what you're doing a bit more. In this game, the way that they're going to be received, Chelsea in general, I mean, we already heard how Sonny feels about Chelsea, so we know he might not be booing Pochettino, but he's definitely going to be booing Chelsea at some stage. And they won't be received well, these players. They already came off of a bad result against Brentford, so they're not feeling that confident, I would imagine. They don't have too many leaders around that sort of dressing room. I know you said that Pochettino works better with younger players, but it's almost like too many younger players. It's practically a daycare, of under 23 talent over there. And I just am confused if, this is a moment where the Chelsea sort of bored and, I think they are capable of being imbeciles. And I think they are capable of, pulling the plug because the way this game could go, I don't know. I don't want to be super confident ahead of it, but let's just say hypotheticals again. Spurs, let's say, win it very convincingly and sort of play them out the park, kind of in the way that Man City did against Man United. Sometimes just sort of owners and, boards, they just sort of feel like this is not headed in the right direction. There's no good momentum right now. There's no good vibe. And also, aren't we kind of one of the big, I feel like it was Brentford or it was us. That was like the start of a really tough run of fixtures as well for Chelsea. So I believe if we end up winning that game, they could end up
Arsenal won as well.
It might have been Arsenal or the one prior. I'm just forgetting, but they have some sort of tough run of fixtures, and we were one of them. And if we give them that sort of, that bad defeat right after their one with Brentford, which is a derby in itself, I don't know. I could see us.
Yeah, I've got it here.
Pochettino. I could see us sacking Pochettino.
And they threw a 2-0 lead away at Arsenal, beating Arsenal before that game as well. So,
Right,
you're
yeah.
talking about London derbies here.
It's
If
like a
they,
knockout blow. It just feels like it's
yeah,
one of those where it's like, are we the catalyst to the knockout blow? Like, are we one of the first punches? It's like, I feel like we're one of the last punches, to knock him out here.
This run is insane, by the way. So it's Arsenal, Brentford, and then they've got Blackburn tonight while we're recording this. Us, City, Newcastle, Brighton, United, even Everton are like looking a bit like they're piecing
Yeah.
stuff together. And then they play a big 6
But
point
even
against
that in
Sheffield
itself,
United.
right?
So
Those
on the
games in
16th.
itself, those are 3 or 4 in a row off the back. They're just not
Mm.
easy, right? And it's like if we
That's up
give
to the
them a
10th of
bad
December as
hiding,
well.
if we
10th of
give them a
December,
bad
those
hiding,
fixtures.
why would you stick with it? It's something
Mm.
if you were impulsive, you would gotta be like, why stick with this? Let's just pull now.
Mm.
Let's just try
I
something
just
else.
don't know
But
who they bring in. I just don't know.
yeah,
Like, I feel like who is there out there now, especially like all the managers that were
mm,
available who were being linked with them have all been snapped up.
yeah,
Enrique, Nagelsmann, you know.
mhm,
I
do you
just
know
find
what?
it a bit of a
Do you
weird
know what,
situation.
Sonny? I said that when we had the likes of Dyer, who got managers continuous, like Sanchez, Davies,
Mm.
but they kept coming in the door. The thing is,
Mm.
managers, they want a payday. They've also got a family at home and everything else, and they have to live. If a club comes calling, they'll take that job.
yeah.
Fair play.
Pochettino or Conte did with Spurs. Um, Going into the game though, what would you play on the left? Brendan Johnson, Richarlison, and if you go with Brendan Johnson, is that once again, kind of more pressure on Richie? Do you think, Sonny? Right, because that's kind of an awkward one. He's lost his striker spot to Sonny, and then he could end up losing his spot on the left to Mr. Johnson.
In my last couple of videos, I've been cheekily digging out Richarlison because I keep going like all the players have improved, and I'm like, apart from Richarlison. But I actually will praise him. I feel like he's much better on the left hand side. I feel like he's offering much more. It's just he's still lacking confidence in front of goal. Then on the other hand, against Crystal Palace, Brendan Johnson comes on and is involved in the goal, and it was really, really good. I think the fact that we are having a conversation about like who could start shows that we have got nice cover in the attacking areas. In this game, though, would Brendan play on the left? Probably. And then who would he be up against? Probably. I mean, Reece James is not really fit yet.
Gusto,
Gusto's
probably.
he's quite a pacey guy. So maybe a bit of pace with Johnson might be the right outlet for this one. And
Hmm.
Richarlison is sort of the person you bring on maybe towards the end if maybe we're chasing the game a little bit, or because like I can never fault Richarlison's work rate. I think his work rate is like exceptional. Like he doesn't stop running, pressing. It's just his finishing, and he's like
Yeah,
and he's like just footballing brain of like what sort of shots to take on, or
yeah.
his instinctiveness. Um, I don't know if it is hard to drop him. I feel like, again, he hasn't scored again. Like he hasn't scored in the games where we expected him. He probably should have scored against Luton. Then he got taken off at half time, which was quite unfair because he was looking quite a bright spark in that game. But yeah, it's worth having a go. It's just at the end of the day, Son is not getting drops. He's scoring the goals. Kulusevski's looking like really good. I actually think not many Spurs fans are talking about how good he's been. I know he's not getting
Mhm.
the numbers, but he's dribbling and like attacking impetus is very, very good. So yeah, I think it could be worth a rotation. It depends. I'm not sure. I know Johnson. They've said he has come back, but he might not be fully match fit. So I could see Richarlison still starting. Like if I was Ange.
Dave?
Look, first of all, everyone knows why I'll never really boo Richarlison or get on his back, and I've explained that before. I'm not going to go through it again. But when it comes to Richarlison, I think he let himself down against Fulham. I really do. Look, the thing is with Richarlison's actually got better stats than most of our wingers in
Against
terms of
Fulham or
goal.
against Palace? Sorry, against Fulham or against Palace?
Oh, sorry, against Palace. Sorry,
Okay,
against Palace.
sorry.
I think
Yeah.
he really let himself down. But the funny thing is, he's got more goals and assists than any one of our other wingers. But the problem is, when the ball gets to his feet, it breaks down too often. And fair play to Postecoglou. When he was affecting games, which he has been, Postecoglou stuck with him, so he's given him the opportunity. However, you have to be on it every single game at Tottenham Hotspur at an elite level with club, pushing up the top of the table, pushing to get into Champions League. You have to be on it nearly every single week. Problem with Richarlison is he's on it one game, the next game maybe he's not on it, and that really does sort of need to improve. But the reality is, that left-hand side really didn't help us at Selhurst Park the other night. It really sort of let us down, that whole left-hand side. And I said this to you, Jack. I was like, this is what baffles me about the guy. He does things you don't expect him to do, and the things you do expect him to do, he makes look really, really
Yeah.
difficult, and he doesn't do it. And I think it's getting to the point where I think a lot of people are getting frustrated with him. And when I look at the situation, Postecoglou gave him his chance up front, right? He has back Richarlison. He came out at the start of the season and said, no, Richarlison's my guy. It didn't work. He had to move Son down the middle. He's given him an opportunity down the left. It worked out for running games, but then Selhurst Park really let him down. Brennan Johnson came on, had a massive impact, and
Yeah.
Postecoglou picks players on merit, which makes me think Brennan Johnson comes in and down that side with a Doji next week or Monday night
Yeah.
against Crystal Palace or against Chelsea. But I do think that Richarlison is in a fight to save his Tottenham career very, very early on this season, because he ain't getting the striker position back off Sonny. And if he falls behind the pecking order off the left wing, where does he play?
Yeah. It's a hard one, Dave, because I agree with what you both have said, in that he's working so hard off the ball, and he actually gets us a lot of, sort of opportunities high and up the pitch from, working so hard off the ball. We do
Mm,
get good opportunities from when we won the ball back from his good hard work, but there's just so little end product in certain moments that there really should be, right? When he has a clear shot on goal that most players would be able to make the keeper work, or in most cases, really just bury, he just hits a
mm,
tame effort, or effort that just goes, wide or skews, or really just mishits it. And then there are other moments, like you said, Dave, where he really surprises people actually, and he actually fastens a really good chance, for somebody else. And that's where I think it's just becoming, it's just too much, ifs and buts, and he's doing this
mm,
and but he's not doing that, kind of thing with Richie. And I'm going to continue to keep the faith in the guy and sort of kind
mm,
of point out what he does do well, so that we don't get too much on his back.
mm,
But I can see why, it's more pressure. I think that's just puts more pressure on him, and
mm,
it should be that if Brendan Johnson, is able to make that impact that we needed in that Crystal Palace game. Like, and this is the thing, Richie could have had 45 minutes of creating chances, doing most of the good work. And that's what a lot of people even said on Twitter, actually, where is
mm,
that while people were frustrated kind of with Spurs, they were saying that Richie was still trying very hard to create chances in that game.
mm,
It's just when Johnson does that with the one or two moments that he had, you already see, well, Johnson's going to be a bit more composed than maybe Richie is in these
mm,
moments. He probably will bury that chance if it's given to him, or he probably will be able to slide it across the floor to somebody to be able to get the assist. And Richie just right
mm,
now, I don't know, he's just not been able to do that, where you just don't have full confidence that he's going to make the right
mm,
decision, or he's going to execute the pass properly, or the shot really at all. Like, he seems more likely to score with his head than he ever is going to score with his feet.
mm.
All these sort of things. There, it's just too many ifs, it's too many buts, it's too many kind of kind of, I don't know,
Yeah.
weaknesses where you might have to go with Johnson. And the frustrating thing is that Richie, I think, has been creating a lot of chances, just no end product at the end of them, and that's the hard part.
The problem Richie has, right, is if you look at someone like Madison, for instance, right, the reason why everyone believes in Madison is because the guy believes in himself more than anybody else. Richarlison doesn't even believe in himself right now, which is making it hard for everyone else to sort of believe in the guy. But also, when you look at a lot of the rumors so far, we're linked to a lot of strikers, which makes me maybe think that Postecoglou doesn't see him as the long-term answer, because I know a lot of people say we don't need to bring in a striker because what do we do with Son? But I think what a lot of people forget is when Kane was out injured, who stepped up and replaced his goals? Son, through the middle. So if Son goes to the Asian Games or Son gets injured, who's going to step in to replace him and score
There aren't two
score
sons.
them goals?
Yeah.
And Richarlison has had that opportunity and that hasn't come. And until he shows that he can do that, a lot more people are going to lose faith in him, and then it'll make it nearly impossible
Yeah.
for him to sort of get back into that team. And it is getting to that point where I think a decision will have to be made, and it's now up to Richarlison what that decision will be.
Yeah. Well said there. Well, I thought maybe we could end it here if we like to, unless Sonny, you have any sort of other talking points, and we might have an extra bonus section as well. But Sonny, any sort of plugs that you might have for your own channel and what's coming up over there. And thank you once again for a very, very nice conversation. I really enjoyed, every section of this. I really did.
That was good. Yeah, a little bit not all in agreement, which is always entertainment. Never gets heated though. We're very well behaved, aren't we, when we're all on this?
Right.
Things to plug. Well, at the moment, I'm doing a lot of good player deep dives over on the channel. One focusing on James Maddison, which I really enjoyed, calling him the best player in the Premier League at the moment, which I don't think is that controversial. I've also done a video where I say, or who I think is the most underrated Spurs player at the moment. I'm not going to reveal who it is because that means people will go over and watch it. And apart from that, I'm doing a video that's going to come out on Friday about why everyone got Tottenham so wrong at the beginning of the season. Everyone thought we were going to finish 9th and we're top of the league. So it's just a bit of chat about that. So yeah, any likes, any subs are greatly appreciated. And again, thanks to you guys for getting me involved in this podcast. It's helped my channel improve. So it's a good little community we got here.
It is.
No, look.
And thanks for joining us. Yeah, Dave.
Yeah, I just want to say quickly, I find you're a great addition to this podcast, Sonny. I think it's a really good dynamic between the three of us. Sometimes we agree, sometimes we don't, but we always sit here with a smile and a laugh on our face. So I just want to say to people, we know you enjoy the podcast, so please get over and replicate that love onto Sonny's channel as well, because he's a big part of this.
Exactly right. And Dave and I, can definitely go way off the end, sometimes with our opinions and our sort of extremism on certain things. So it's nice to have somebody that can remain a little bit more balanced and sensible on
the
certain
fence.
things for sure. Yeah, we just need somebody to keep us, tethered in some way. But please, everybody, do smash the like button, get your comments in, head on over to Sonny's channel. Please check out all those great videos and content that's coming up on his one. And also as well, if you want to check out a lot of the bonus content that we continue to put out there as much as we can, feel free to grab a membership because there is really good stuff out there that we're putting out on the regular. But we'll leave it there. Come on, you Spurs. In the big Ange we trust. We never stop. See you, everybody.